Good morning. I know a lot of you guys that are watching this are watching it at home. We got some folks out sick, some other things. Today I'm going to finish chapter 1. This is the one section that was not in the last test. This is section 5, and it's called Transatlantic Encounters. Columbus's voyage set off a chain of events that bring together the peoples of Europe, Africa, and the Americas. Trans means to change or to go across. Normally it means to cross, to go across. Okay? When you see that word. Okay, now, so you can see these ships. By the way, anyone know the names of Columbus's 3 ships? The Pinta, the Nina, and the Santa Maria. Okay, it's important we know those. In 1492, Christopher Columbus attempted to reach Asia by sailing west. He meets the Taino, who were natives of the Caribbean, renames their island San Salvador. Now, I know that there's a lot of evidence now that Vikings and some other folks may have gotten to North America first. But Columbus was the first to chart it really well and the first to return. Okay, and so he's considered in history the quote-unquote discoverer of America. Having said that, he didn't discover anything. There are already people here. But for the Europeans, he discovered it for Europeans. Okay? Now, main reasons people explored was gold, land, and religion. We call it in history the 3 G's: God, gold, and glory. People wanted to spread the gospel. They wanted wealth, and gold could be any kind of wealth, and glory. We do a lot of things for glory. I know Mr. McDonald plays football, and some others play football, and soccer, and basketball, and baseball, and tennis, and track, and golf, and volleyball, and I think I'm hopefully got all the sports. I'm sure I've left some out. Cross country. But a lot of it, there's something about winning. It's glory. You know, it's a feeling of accomplishment or pride. Well, one of the reasons that people explored was glory. One of the reasons we went to the moon was to try to be the first there, the United States. And there was glory there. Yes, there were other reasons. But having said that, it was mainly for the glory. We got to beat the Russians in this technological race to space. By the way, we're going back to the moon in the next couple of years. Fired off a rocket yesterday, I believe, to go to the moon. But nobody on it, but it was a practice. All right, so once Columbus got to the Caribbean Sea or arrived in the Caribbean, he explored many small islands and coastlines of Cuba, Hispaniola, and others. He led 3 more voyages. He took soldiers, priests, and colonists. And the Spanish were also the first to occupy the Caribbean island and later the mainland in Florida and South America. Again, when we talk about colonizing, there were people already here. And it's going to affect them. Okay? When you say the word colonize, it means you send people of your ethnic group, your race, your nation, and you transplant them somewhere else. That's colonization. Regardless if there's other people there or not. Okay? The Europeans forced the Native Americans to become slaves, to work for them. That didn't work out too well because that kind of work was foreign to Native Americans. And on top of that, they were not immune to the diseases brought by the Spanish and the Portuguese and others. In the late 1490s, rebellions broke out all over these islands. And the Spanish had to put them down brutally. Contagious diseases killed hundreds of thousands of Native Americans. Some historians claim millions. The evidence isn't there of the millions number yet, but it is definitely a possibility. Here's one word you have to know. It's on the test. It's on every standardized American history test I've ever taken part of. By standardized, I mean end of course test, graduation test. If you go to college, you'll see this word over and over again. It's called the Columbian Exchange. The Columbian Exchange meant the transfer of plants, animals between hemispheres. Basically, there were things in Europe they didn't have here in what is today America. There were things in America they didn't have in Europe. And the fact that these goods, services, animals, plants, and later peoples would result in this Columbian Exchange. Okay? In 1494, 2 years after Christopher Columbus, quote unquote, discovered America, the Portuguese and the Spanish had been arguing about who would control this new territory. And it started with the Pope drawing a line called the Papal Line of Demarcation. And in 1494, Spain and Portugal agreed basically to the Papal Line of Demarcation, shifted it a little bit to the west, and it became the Treaty of Tordesillas. Now, having said that, most of Americans went to Spain. However, Brazil went to Portugal. And Brazil would become the largest country in South America eventually. The treaty was unenforceable. The English, Dutch, and the French continued to colonize the Americans because they, for one thing, they didn't agree with the Treaty of Tordesillas. Another, they weren't parties to it. And then another is most of them, at least the English and the Dutch, were not Catholic. So it didn't matter to them that the Pope said this belongs to Portugal and Spain. Okay. Here's a very good graphic of the Columbian Exchange. Now, by the way, this entire PowerPoint can be located at www.coachvice.com. Hottest site on the web. If you're not there, you're square. But the Columbian Exchange, you can see the many things that came from the Americas: tobacco, pumpkins, turkeys, quinine, squash, pineapple, sweet potato, avocado, peppers, cacao bean, cassavas, peanuts, potatoes, tomatoes, corn, beans, vanilla. By the way, purple onions open. All this talking about food got me thinking about that. But anyway, those came from the Americas. And they, from Europe, you had grapes, turnips, onions, sugar canes, bananas, olives, peaches, pears, coffee beans, and all of these other things. Honeybees came from Europe. Citrus fruits, grains, wheat, rice, barley, oats, livestock, cattle, sheep, pigs, and horses. Disease, smallpox, influenza, typhus, measles, malaria, diphtheria, whooping cough. So it wasn't all good things that came on the Columbian Exchange. There was also, I guess the best way to say it would be bad things. The Columbian Exchange would follow routes called the triangular trade routes. And you can see there's several triangles being created here. As a soccer coach, we use triangles a lot. It's the most stable way of doing things, give and goes and things of that nature. But you see here you have, this is the triangular trade route. It is related to the Columbian Exchange. It's basically how you got there, okay? We added slaves to this horrendous passage called the Middle Passage, which we'll talk about later. Rum, manufactured goods, sugar, molasses, raw goods coming from the Americas to Europe, all part of triangular trade. And as we talked about the very first day in here, these clash of cultures will begin to affect each other. Okay? Columbus returned to Spain in 1504, finally realizing and disappointed that he didn't find China or India. Okay? However, these people were transformed as unfamiliar customs come together. They found out really quickly that you couldn't impose European values completely on Native Americans, nor Africans. So a blended society would develop. Okay? It's ironic when I talk to the exchange students a lot. They say, it's similar to here, but you guys do some things different here in America. Well, we have a blended society. Yes, we're predominantly European culturally, but at the same time, we've blended with other institutions and peoples as well. And this concludes chapter 1, section 5. It will be added to chapter 2's lecture, and that's what the next test will be on. It'll be on chapter 2, sections 1 through 4, and chapter 1, section 5. And we'll hopefully have that test next Tuesday. That's the plan. If we're not there, we'll drop back and punt and move it to one of the block days. Thank you guys for paying attention, and you guys that are homesick, I hope you get feeling better.